This video has spoilers for both The Batman and Peacemaker, so you're warned. Here are some time codes in case you only care about one of these reviews. Okay, so there has been some DC content that has released in 2022 that I just haven't reviewed at all. So I figured I'd review the two pieces of DC content that I've seen this year, because I wanted to talk about these two anyway. And yeah, the two pieces of DC content I'm obviously talking about are The Batman and Peacemaker. So let's just start things off with The Batman. So right off the bat, I want to say that one of my positives of this movie is the atmosphere. The city of Gotham is just so cool, and I love the atmosphere it gives off. I'm glad this Gotham has a personality, considering the fact that the Dark Knight trilogy kind of removed all personality from Gotham. Well, Batman Begins Gotham was really cool, however, in my opinion, the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises kind of just removed all personality from Gotham. But this Gotham is so fucking cool. Also, it's something like how it immediately establishes Batman in this world, and how when the bat signal goes off, every criminal is just terrified. Pretty much every criminal looks into the shadows thinking that Batman is in there and is about to come out to beat them. It is such an effective opening scene. Or even with the first detective scene with Batman, where we see all the cops around him and how they don't particularly like him, because Batman is pretty young in this, as he's only been Batman for about 2 years. It does a great job at showing Batman and Bruce Wayne's place in the world at this moment. This movie also gives Batman an actual arc with him learning to become a hero. Because the Riddler sees no difference from what he's doing to Batman, which makes Batman realize that he needs to do things in a different way. It's really fucking great. Speaking of which, the Riddler is also a fantastic villain. His first scene is genuinely quite scary, especially for a fucking Batman movie. His motivations are also fascinating because he was an orphan and so was Bruce. However, he was a poor orphan, whereas Bruce was the rich one. This basically meant that all the press and attention was on Bruce instead of orphans who grew up poor, where they were even dying. It's genuinely a really cool contrast between the two. Also, I think that what the fuck? Also, I think the Penguin was a great villain. He wasn't in the movie as much as I thought he would be, however, he was still very fun. It was definitely one of the highlights if it would come down to comedy. Also, Catwoman was fine in my opinion. I thought her story was pretty good, however, I wish her romance with Batman was more defined. Like, genuinely, I don't get what he sees in this woman. Also, this movie has my favorite live-action version of Gordon. Jeffrey Wright is so good in the role, and he brings a lot of cool, subtle comedy to him as well. For example, after Batman punches him, he says that Batman could have held back, and Batman replies that he did. It's all really good. Also, yes, everyone has already pointed it out, but the cinematography in this movie is fucking amazing. The usage of color palettes and lighting is genuinely some of the best I've ever seen in any comic book movie. Even simple things like Batman emerging from the shadows was really cool. Also, the action scenes in this movie are fucking amazing and some of my favorites in any comic book movie. I genuinely love a lot of the choreography in this movie. Also, stuff like Batman just tanking 2 machine guns because it's bulletproof armor. And yes, I've seen people complain about the bulletproof armor and it being too OP. However, honestly, I will take that over people waiting their turns to fire at Batman for plot armor's sake. But genuinely, I'll take this over this any day of the fucking week. I love a lot of the final battle, and I love the Batmobile chase. Seriously, that chase was fucking great and had a lot of standout moments to it. Also, goddamn, the score is fucking amazing. This is nothing new, but Michael Giacchino truly outdid himself. It was genuinely incredible. Anyway, if I were to give any criticisms, I guess I have some. Well, really only one, and the thing that comes to mind for me is that I find the final battle to be a little tacked on. Like at the end, the conflict is defeated and the mystery is solved, however, it turns out that Riddler had another secret plan. Just felt kinda weird to me, I guess. But despite that, it's honestly probably my favorite comic book movie of all time. There's just so much that I love about it, and I might make a future video on it. No promises, though. And, I mean, if you really want to know my score, I'd either go with a 10 or 9.5 out of 10. I really love it so much. However, I'm in a really good mood right now, so for now, I will honestly give The Batman a 10 out of 10. Alright, now it's time for Peacemaker. I really fucking loved Peacemaker. Like, I'm not kidding when I say that this might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite comic book shows in a long time. It legit might be my favorite live-action comic book show since, like, fucking Daredevil, which is pretty impressive for me. Like, honestly, I think the thing that really carries the show is the characters. The characters in the show are genuinely fantastic, and some of the best in the entire DCEU, if you ask me. I think Peacemaker is a very interesting character, and you can tell that they purposely made him very unlikable in the Suicide Squad, that way they could improve upon him in this show. And I thought they did it pretty well with his backstory with his brother and his dad and all that. I thought it was very cool. Also, I thought the way he bounced off each character was really cool. For example, something that I thought was really interesting about Peacemaker's character was that he's smart enough to know that he's an asshole and he has to change, but he's just not smart enough to know how to change. Also, equally was the best, and the scene in the 7th episode where he hugs Peacemaker is like the best shit I've ever seen. I also really liked all the other characters like Murn, Economos, Hardcore, and Adebayo. I also really like Vigilante. Each character gets a lot to do and is pretty well developed as well. Granted, it does take a couple episodes before they start getting quite interesting, however, thankfully Peacemaker is interesting from the start. I think it does make up for the first few episodes not being as interesting as the rest. Also, a lot of the action scenes in the show are weirdly really good. Like, I was shocked at how much I enjoyed a lot of the action scenes in the show. And it helps that Peacemaker has a bunch of crazy new helmets as well. There were also a lot of great moments with action tied in with comedy, such as the Russian tank shell scene. I think it's both funny and also really cool. Also, the show has an intro with choreography instead of like some animated stuff like Daredevil or whatever. And it's unironically one of my favorite things about the entire show. And honestly, I really respect this show for being different from a lot of other DC projects. Like in terms of tone and style, this show is so different to a lot of other DC stuff. And it paid off in my opinion. And also, goddamn, the resolution of the show is fucking amazing. It honestly might be my favorite scene in the show, which is saying a lot because there was a lot that I loved in the show. Also, the song choice being Apologize is fucking great as well. If I were to complain, this is quite obvious, but I didn't think some of the jokes worked very well. Even though I like some of James Gunn's raunchy humor because that just kind of matches mine, I think that sometimes the jokes went on for way too long. It could be very annoying because this show has a lot of jokes that are funnier than my favorites in the Suicide Squad, however, it has quite a few that are worse as well. Although honestly, these jokes didn't take away my enjoyment factor from the show too much. Because I love this show, and honestly, so far, I am loving DC content this year. So if you want my score for Peacemaker, I will give this show a 9 out of 10. I also really hope that Black Adam can keep up the streak since I'm genuinely excited for that movie. Also, yes, I know that The Flash and Aquaman were both delayed. However, Shazam was moved up, and I'm also excited for that movie. So I do have hope for the future of DC this year. Anyway, that's really it for this weirdly positive video. Please let me know your thoughts of The Batman and Peacemaker in the comments below, and if you're excited for more DC stuff this year. Anyway, now if you don't mind me, I'm gonna go back into my hibernation for like 2 or 3 weeks. So have a good day, and bye-bye.